The forest on Veridax 7 was beautiful in a way that made Taiho Kim smile. Tall purple trees reached toward the orange sky, and small flying creatures danced between the branches. He knelt down and pressed his scanner against the dark soil, watching the readings appear on his screen. The planet was perfect for human settlement. Good air, clean water, and rich ground that could grow crops easily. Taiho, what are the mineral readings? Yuna Park called from 20 meters away. She stood with her rifle held loosely, eyes scanning the tree line. She never relaxed completely on New Worlds. That was why she was the best security specialist in the survey division. Excellent, Taiho replied, standing and brushing dirt from his knees. Iron, copper, and traces of rare elements. This planet is a gold mine. Behind them, Brixtal made a clicking sound with his mandibles. The Volthene looked like a massive praying mantis, standing nearly 3 meters tall on 4 legs. His compound eyes reflected the sunlight in rainbow patterns. I must remind the team that we have only surveyed 12% of this continent. Coalition protocols require 60% coverage before approval. We know the rules, Brixtal, Yuna said, though her voice was gentle. She liked the careful expedition leader, even if he followed every rule exactly. Marrow snorted from where he sat on a rock. The Kanthir was built like a muscular lizard, with dark green scales and yellow eyes that seemed to judge everything. Humans are always in a hurry. Your species only joined the coalition 50 years ago, yet you act like you own the galaxy. Taiho ignored the comment. Marrow said things like that every day. The warrior seemed to think his species was tougher than everyone else, just because they had scales and sharp teeth. Taiho had stopped arguing with him after the first week. The survey team had been on Veridax 7 for 9 days. They were a small group. 2 humans, 1 Volthene, 1 Kanthir, and 3 Felnar, who mostly stayed near the shuttle working on data analysis. The Felnar were small, furry beings who preferred machines to field work. Taiho respected that. Let's move to the northern section, Taiho suggested, packing his scanner into his belt. I want to check the water sources near those hills. They had walked for maybe 30 minutes when Yuna stopped suddenly. Her hand went up in the universal signal for danger. Everyone froze. Tracks, she whispered, pointing at the ground. Taiho moved closer and felt his stomach tighten. The prints were huge, each one the size of a dinner plate. 6 claws on each foot pressed deep into the soft earth. Whatever made these tracks was heavy and powerful. Raxhound, Brixtal said, his voice shaking slightly. The local apex predator. I read about them in the initial drone survey data. How big? Marrow asked, his hand moving to his weapon. The drones estimated adult specimens at 400 kilograms, approximately 2.3 meters at the shoulder. 6-legged pursuit predators with armored hide and pack hunting intelligence. Yuna looked at Taiho. They both knew what this meant. The Galactic Coalition had strict rules about colonization. Any planet with Class 4 or higher predators was automatically rejected. Humans could handle dangerous animals, but most Coalition species couldn't. They had evolved on gentler worlds where being prey was a real fear. We should return to the shuttle, Brixtal said immediately. I will file a negative report. This planet is too dangerous for settlement. Wait, Taiho said, studying the tracks more carefully. These prints are at least 2 days old. The creature passed through and kept going. We haven't seen any signs of active hunting in our survey zones. That means nothing, Marrow growled. Predators are unpredictable. We should leave before we become prey. Taiho found that funny. Marrow talked big, but like most Coalition species, he feared predators on an instinctive level. Humans were different. Earth had been full of dangerous animals, and humanity had learned to live alongside them. Sometimes they had even made friends with them. One more day, Yuna suggested, though she kept her rifle ready. We came here to do a complete survey. Let's finish our job. Brixtal's antennae twitched nervously, but finally he clicked his agreement. One day, then we file the report and leave. They continued working, but everyone was more careful now. Taiho noticed how the other species kept looking over their shoulders. Their evolutionary programming was screaming at them to run. Humans had those instincts too, but they had learned to control them better. By evening, they had returned to their base camp. It was a simple setup. 3 large tents, equipment stations, and a portable shield generator that kept out small animals and insects. Their shuttle sat nearby, ready for quick evacuation if needed. Taiho sat by the fire that night looking at his data. Veridax 7 really was perfect. The right temperature, good seasons, plenty of resources. It would be a shame to lose it just because of some big animals. Earth had bears, lions, and wolves, but humans had figured out how to share space with them. Sometimes those relationships had even become partnerships. He thought about his childhood dog, a German shepherd named Max. Smart, loyal, protective. People forgot that dogs used to be wolves, apex predators that could kill humans easily. But somewhere in history, humans and wolves had found a way to trust each other. They had become family. Could the same thing happen with Raxhounds? Probably not, but the idea interested him. "You're thinking too much," Una said, sitting down beside him with a cup of coffee. "I can see it on your face. Just wondering if we're giving up too easily. The coalition rules exist for good reasons. Most species can't handle apex predators the way we can. They don't have our history with domestication." "I know. It just feels wrong to abandon such a good planet." Una smiled. "That's the xenobiologist in you talking. You want to study everything." Before Taiho could respond, the proximity alarm started beeping. Not the loud emergency sound, but the steady beep that meant something large was approaching the perimeter. Brixtal rushed out of his tent. "What is it?" Una was already at the scanner station. Her face went pale as she read the screen. Multiple large signatures. 6 of them. Moving fast. Coming straight toward us. "Raxhounds," Marrow hissed, grabbing his weapon. "Everyone to the shuttle," Brixtal ordered, his voice high with panic. Now, they ran. Taiho grabbed his emergency pack and followed Una toward the shuttle. Behind them, he could hear crashing sounds in the forest. Breaking branches. Heavy footsteps. The sounds were getting closer. They were 50 meters from the shuttle when shapes burst from the trees ahead of them, blocking the path. 3 Raxhounds. Juveniles probably, but still massive. Each one was the size of an adult lion, with 6 powerful legs and armored plates along their backs. Their faces were wolf-like but broader, with large eyes that reflected the firelight. They made high-pitched chirping sounds and pawed at the ground. The team stopped running. They had nowhere to go. Taiho's heart pounded, but his scientific mind was still working. He watched how the creatures moved. Their tails were raised, but not rigid. Their ears pointed forward with curiosity, not flat with aggression. They were acting like puppies? In the distance, adult Raxhounds howled. The sound was deep and terrifying. The parents were coming and they sounded angry. Time was running out. The 3 young Raxhounds spread out, blocking the path to the shuttle. They chirped and made small barking sounds, bouncing on their front legs like excited dogs. But these were not dogs. Each cub had jaws that could crush bone and claws that could tear through metal. "Don't move," Una whispered, her rifle coming up slowly. "Marrow, get ready with the stun setting." Marrow's hands were shaking as he adjusted his weapon. Taiho noticed that. The big warrior was terrified. So was Brixtal, who had gone completely still except for his antennae vibrating with fear. One of the cubs moved closer, sniffing the air. Its eyes were bright orange and fixed on Taiho. The creature made a curious whining sound and tilted its head. "I'm going to scare them," Marrow announced. Before anyone could stop him, he fired his weapon on stun mode. The blue energy blast hit the ground in front of the cubs. The cubs jumped back, startled. Then they seemed to think it was a game. They barked excitedly and rushed forward, playing and nipping at each other. They were closer now, only 10 meters away. "You made it worse," Una snapped. Brixtal pulled out a canister from his belt with shaking hands. "Chemical deterrent. It works on most predators." He threw the canister. It exploded in a cloud of yellow smoke between them and the cubs. The cubs walked right through the smoke. One of them sneezed several times, shaking its head. Then it sneezed again and pawed at its nose. The other 2 thought this was hilarious and started jumping on their sneezing sibling. "That's not working either," Taiho observed quietly. In the forest behind the cubs, the adult howls were getting louder, closer. Taiho guessed they had maybe 2 minutes before the parents arrived. Adult Raxhounds would not be playful. They would be protective and dangerous. "We need to shoot them," Una said, and Taiho heard the sadness in her voice. "Lethal rounds. It's the only way." "If we kill them, the planet fails colonization requirements anyway," Brixtal said. His voice had a strange calm now, the acceptance of someone who thought they were going to die. "Either way, we are finished." "I'd rather be alive and finished," Marrow growled. Una raised her rifle, aiming at the largest cub. Taiho saw her finger move toward the trigger. Time seemed to slow down. His mind raced through options, through his training, through everything he knew about animal behavior. The cubs weren't attacking. They were investigating, playing. These were juvenile behaviors. The same behaviors he'd seen in wolf pups at the sanctuary back on Earth. The same way young dogs approach strangers, with curiosity and energy, not aggression. "Wait," Taiho said firmly. "Everyone stop moving. Stay completely still and quiet." "Taiho, we don't have time for," Yuna started. "Trust me, please." Something in his voice made her pause. The rifle stayed up, but she didn't fire. Taiho watched the cubs carefully. Their body language told him everything. Raised tails meant confidence, not fear. Forward ears meant curiosity. The play bows and bouncing? Those were invitation gestures. These cubs weren't hunting. They were investigating strange new creatures they'd never seen before, just like puppies. Slowly, very slowly, Taiho took 3 steps forward. "What are you doing?" Brixtel hissed. "Are you insane?" Maybe he was. The logical part of his brain was screaming that this was stupid and dangerous. But another part, the part that had grown up with dogs and studied animal behavior for 15 years, told him he was right. He dropped to one knee. The movement made him smaller, less threatening. Then he turned his body slightly to the side. Direct frontal facing was aggressive in many species. Sideways was neutral. The cubs stopped playing and watched him with intense focus. Taiho took a slow breath and started to whistle. It was a soft, gentle sound. Not loud or sharp, but calm and rhythmic. He'd learned this technique from a wolf rehabilitation expert on Earth. Wolves responded to certain frequencies better than others. High-pitched meant excitement or distress. Low and steady meant calm. He kept the whistle low and steady. The 3 cubs' ears perked up immediately. Their aggressive posturing melted away. One of them took a cautious step forward, then another. Its nose worked overtime, trying to identify what Taiho was. "Taiho, the adults are coming," Yuna warned. Her voice was tight with fear. 30 seconds. Maybe less. He heard them now. Heavy footsteps crashing through the forest. Breaking branches. The ground was starting to vibrate slightly with their weight, but Taiho kept whistling. He extended his hand slowly, palm down, fingers relaxed. This was the universal non-threatening gesture for animals. He wasn't reaching, just offering. The closest cub stretched its neck forward, sniffing toward his hand. Its nose twitched. Taiho could smell its breath. It smelled like raw meat and something else. Something earthy. The cub moved closer, closer. Its nose touched his fingertips, and then it pressed its massive head against his hand, like a cat seeking affection. Taiho felt the rough texture of its armored plates under his palm. Carefully, so carefully, he moved his fingers. He scratched gently behind the cub's ear plates where the armor didn't cover. The cub made a sound. A deep rumbling purr. "Oh my stars," Brixtel whispered. "He's petting it." The other 2 cubs immediately wanted attention too. They bounded over, pushing against each other to get close to Taiho. He scratched one under its chin, and it actually made the same face dogs made when they found the perfect spot. Eyes half closed, mouth slightly open in pleasure. Taiho ran his hand along another cub's side and found a spot that made its rear leg kick involuntarily, just like dogs did. He almost laughed. These alien predators had the same ticklish spots as Earth animals. "This is impossible," Marrow said. "This human has broken the laws of nature." "Or he understands them better than we do," Yuna replied. She still had her rifle up, but she was staring at Taiho with something like wonder. The adult raxhounds exploded from the tree line. They were massive, twice the size of the cubs. Armored plates covered most of their bodies, and their mouths were full of teeth designed for tearing. They moved with terrible speed and purpose. Everyone except Taiho tensed to die, but the adults skidded to a stop 5 meters away. Their eyes locked onto the scene, their 3 offspring playing with a strange creature. Getting belly rubs. Licking the creature's face. One adult made a deep rumbling sound. It wasn't a growl exactly, but it was clearly a warning. Taiho stopped petting the cubs but continued his soft whistling. He stood up slowly, keeping his movements smooth and deliberate. He could feel the adult's eyes tracking every motion. These were not puppies. These were experienced predators who could kill him in seconds. He took a step backward. The cubs tried to follow, making sad whining sounds. One of the adults barked sharply. The cubs froze, then reluctantly moved back toward their parents. Taiho kept backing up, still whistling softly. He positioned himself in front of his team, blocking their scent slightly. protecting them the way a pack member would. The adult Raxhounds watched. Their body language was confused. They could smell that the two-legged creature meant no harm. Their cubs were safe and happy, but instinct said unknown creatures were dangerous. "Move toward the shuttle," Tejo said quietly. "Slowly, don't run." The team obeyed. They walked backward step by careful step. The Raxhound family watched but didn't follow. When they reached the shuttle door, Yuna pulled Tejo inside. The door sealed shut. Through the window they could see the Raxhound family still standing in the clearing. The three cubs sat at the edge, watching the shuttle. Waiting. Tejo pressed his hand against the window and whistled one more time, though they couldn't hear it through the sealed door. One cub's tail wagged. The shuttle lifted off slowly. Tejo kept his eyes on the clearing below until it disappeared from view. The Raxhound family had stayed there, watching. The cubs had been sitting like well-trained dogs waiting for their owner to return. "I need to sit down," Brickstall said. His legs were shaking so badly he could barely walk. He collapsed into a seat and put his head in his hands. "I thought we were dead. I was certain we were dead." "We should have been dead," Marrow added. He was trying to sound tough, but his scales had gone pale. "That human did something impossible. Some kind of human magic." Yuna snorted. "It wasn't magic. It was understanding animal behavior." She looked at Tejo with respect and a little bit of concern. "Though I'll admit, that was either the bravest or stupidest thing I've ever seen." "Maybe both," Tejo admitted. His hands were shaking now too, adrenaline finally catching up with him. "But I saw how they were moving. They weren't hunting. They were curious." "Curious predators are still predators," Brickstall said. "Coalition law is clear. Any planet with Class 4 or higher apex predators cannot be colonized. I must file my report." Tejo turned to face the Volthene. "What if they don't have to be just predators?" "What do you mean?" "On Earth, we had wolves. Big, dangerous pack hunters. They could kill humans easily. But thousands of years ago, some humans and some wolves found a way to trust each other. They worked together. Eventually, wolves became dogs. They became our partners, our friends, our family." Marrow made a disgusted sound. "You're saying your species turned apex predators into pets?" "Partners," Tejo corrected. "Dogs help humans hunt, protect homes, find people in disasters, assist the blind. They're not just pets. They're working members of society." "That's insane," Marrow said flatly. "My species would never allow a predator near our homes." "Most species wouldn't," Brickstall agreed. "Humans are unusual in this way. Your evolution on Earth was different. You lived alongside predators and somehow learned to coexist. The rest of us evolved on gentler worlds. Our instinct is to flee or hide, not befriend." Tejo thought about that. It was true. Earth had been a dangerous place. Humans had been both predator and prey. They'd learned to hunt, but also to watch for things hunting them. Maybe that unique position in the food chain had made them different. "The cubs responded to me," Tejo said. "They understood soft sounds and non-threatening body language. They showed affection. Those are signs of social intelligence, the same traits that made wolves good partners for humans." Yuna pulled up her data pad and started taking notes. "He's right. I recorded the whole encounter. The cubs displayed behavior patterns similar to Earth canines, pack structure, social bonding, even play behaviors that extended beyond their species." "This is all very interesting," Brickstall said, his voice returning to its normal, careful tone. "But it doesn't change coalition law. I must report what we found. The planet will be rejected." "Then let me contest the report," Tejo said quickly. "Give me a chance to study them properly. 30 days. If I can prove these Raxhounds have domestication potential, the planet stays viable." "Domestication potential?" Marrow laughed. "You want to turn those monsters into pets in 30 days? This is beyond insane." "Not pets. Partners. And yes, I think I can prove it's possible." Brickstall was quiet for a long time. His antennae moved in ways Tejo had learned meant he was thinking hard. Finally he spoke. "If I allow this and you fail, my career is over. If you succeed but someone gets hurt, my career is over. If you succeed and I supported you, I become known as the leader who approved living with apex predators. But if I succeed, Taiho said gently, you become known as the leader who found a way to save an incredible planet. Think of what Veridax 7 offers. Perfect conditions for dozens of species, resources, room to grow, all of it lost because of fear. Fear keeps us alive, Brixtal countered. Sometimes. But sometimes fear holds us back from something amazing. Yuna cleared her throat. I'll go with him. Security escort. If things get dangerous, I can pull him out. I'll go too, Brixtal said suddenly. Everyone turned to stare at him. What? I'm serious. If humans can live with predators, I want to understand how. Maybe. Maybe we've been letting fear control us too much. I must see this with my own eyes. Marrow shook his head. You're all crazy, but fine. Do your study. I'll stay on the ship where it's safe. The Coalition survey ship Endless Prosperity was in orbit 2 hours later. Brixtal filed his preliminary report, noting the presence of Class 5 predators. But he also filed a request for an extended study period before final judgment. The response came back within a day. The Coalition Review Board was shocked by the request. Several members sent personal messages saying they thought Brixtal had lost his mind, but they approved the 30-day extension. Maybe they were curious. Maybe they just wanted to see what would happen. Taiho spent those days preparing. He studied every bit of data about raxhounds from the drone surveys. He read about wolf domestication theory. He prepared food supplies, training tools, and safety equipment. Yuna watched him work with a mixture of admiration and concern. You know this might not work, right? These aren't wolves. They're alien creatures. They might not respond the same way. I know, Taiho said, but I have to try. Did you see their faces? The cubs were so curious, so eager to interact. That's not normal predator behavior. That's social behavior. That's potential. Just promise me you'll be careful. I promise. 3 days later, they were back on the surface. Taiho, Yuna, and Brixtal set up a new camp near where they'd first encountered the Raxhound family. This camp was simpler than before. No big tents, just small shelters. No walls or barriers. Taiho wanted the Raxhounds to see that they weren't threats. The first day, nothing happened. They saw tracks, but no actual creatures. The second day, Taiho started leaving food offerings at the edge of the clearing. Fresh meat from their supplies. He also set up a speaker that played recordings of his whistling sounds on a loop. The third day, the food was gone. Something took it, Yuna reported. The tracks are Raxhound, small ones, the cubs. Taiho smiled. They remember. They associate the sounds with safety and food. On the fourth day, Taiho was sitting by the fire at sunset when he heard a soft chirping sound. He turned slowly and saw a shape at the edge of the clearing. One of the cubs. The same one that had first approached him. It sat there watching. Taiho started his soft whistling. The cub's ears perked up. It took a step forward, then another. Brixtal was frozen in fear inside his shelter, but Yuna had her camera ready. She filmed as the cub walked right up to Taiho and bumped its head against his shoulder. Hello again, Taiho whispered. He scratched behind its ear plates and the cub made that deep purring sound. Over the next 2 weeks, all 3 cubs became regular visitors. They would arrive each evening, play with Taiho, accept treats, and then disappear before dark. The adult Raxhounds never showed themselves, but Taiho knew they were watching. He could feel their eyes on him sometimes. On day 16, something changed. Taiho was walking through the forest, collecting plant samples. The 3 cubs were following him like a happy parade. They had started doing that a few days ago, just following him around during his work. Suddenly, all 3 cubs stopped. Their ears went flat. A low growl came from their throats. Taiho turned and saw what they sensed. A creature emerged from the undergrowth. It looked like a serpent, but with legs, maybe 3 meters long, with venomous fangs visible in its open mouth. The cubs positioned themselves between Taiho and the serpent beast. They were protecting him. The serpent beast hissed and raised its front half off the ground. Venom dripped from its fangs, burning the leaves where it fell. The creature was fast and deadly. Tahoe knew that if it attacked, he was dead. But the 3 Raxhound cubs stood their ground. They spread out in a defensive formation that looked practiced, like they'd done this before. Their growls became deeper, more threatening. Tahoe's heart pounded. He could call them back, whistle for them to retreat, but something told him not to. These cubs were doing what came naturally, protecting a member of their pack. If he interfered, he might break their trust. Instead, he stood still and watched. The serpent beast lunged at the closest cub. The cub dodged easily, jumping to the side. The other 2 cubs moved in from the flanks, snapping at the serpent's tail and back legs. They were hurting it, controlling its movement. The serpent tried to turn and strike, but the cubs were too coordinated. They worked as a team, forcing the creature to retreat step by step. The serpent finally realized it was outmatched. It hissed one more time and slithered away into the undergrowth. The cubs watched until it was gone, then turned back to Tahoe. Their tails were wagging. They looked proud of themselves. Tahoe knelt down and scratched all 3 of them. Good cubs. Very good. They had protected him, not because he trained them to, but because they saw him as part of their pack. That single moment proved everything Tahoe believed. These creatures weren't just intelligent predators. They were social beings capable of forming bonds across species lines. When he returned to camp and told Yuna and Brixtal what happened, the Volthene looked thoughtful. They chose to protect you, Brixtal said slowly. That means they have accepted you as pack family. Among predator species, that is. I didn't think it was possible between different species. On Earth, dogs protect their human families all the time, Tahoe explained. They see us as their pack. The weak ones they need to guard. It's instinct combined with affection. Your species has lived with this for so long that you think it's normal, Brixtal observed. The rest of the galaxy finds it terrifying and amazing. The final week of the study period went quickly. Tahoe started basic training with the cubs. Simple commands using hand signals and whistle patterns. Sit, stay, come. The cubs learned faster than he expected. They were smart and eager to please. On day 28, the adult Raxhounds finally appeared. Tahoe was playing with the cubs when he felt a change in the air. The cubs stopped playing and turned toward the tree line. 2 massive shapes emerged from the shadows. Yuna reached for her rifle, but Tahoe held up his hand. Wait, let's see what they do. The adult Raxhounds approached slowly. Their eyes were locked on Tahoe. He could see the intelligence there, the assessment. These creatures were deciding if he was friend or threat. Tahoe knelt down and lowered his head slightly. It was a submission gesture, showing he respected their authority. He started his soft whistling again. The female adult, he could tell by the slightly lighter coloring, came closer. She sniffed him carefully, her nose working across his face, his hands, his clothes. She was learning his scent deeply. Then she did something that made Tahoe's eyes water. She licked his face once, the same way she probably licked her cubs. It was acceptance. The male adult watched but didn't approach. He kept his distance, protective and cautious. That was fine. Tahoe understood. The male was the guardian. He needed more time to trust, but the female's acceptance was enough. When Brixtal filed his final report, he included video footage of Tahoe sitting among the Raxhound family. Cubs playing around him, the female resting her massive head on his shoulder while he scratched her ears. The Coalition, review board called an emergency, meeting Tahoe and Brixtal stood before a holographic panel of 30 different species representatives. Some looked curious. Most looked shocked. A few looked angry. This is unprecedented, said a Voltar representative, a floating blob-like creature that spoke through a translator. You're asking us to approve a predator world for colonization? I'm asking you to see the potential, Tahoe replied. Raxhounds aren't just predators. They're intelligent, social beings capable of forming partnerships with other species. A Drellian representative, who looked like a cross between a bird and a plant, clicked their beak disapprovingly. Your species has a known defect in your survival programming. You approach danger instead of fleeing it. This makes you unreliable judges of safety. Perhaps, Yuna spoke up from behind Tahoe, but this defect helped humanity survive on one of the most dangerous worlds in Coalition space. Earth had predators everywhere. We learned to adapt, to understand them, to work with them when possible. Or you simply went insane, Marrow muttered. He had been called to testify as well. I watched this human walk up to apex predators and pet them like domestic animals. It was unnatural. It was communication, Brixtal countered. The Volthene had changed over the past month. His fear of predators was still there, but now it was mixed with understanding.
I have observed humans and Raxhounds interacting for 28 days.
The relationship is real. The cubs respond to commands. The adults have accepted human presence. This is not magic or insanity. This is a skill humans possess that the rest of us lack. A Telkin representative, a species of aquatic beings who appeared via water-filled hologram, spoke gently. Even if what you say is true, how does this help colonization? Humans can befriend these creatures, but what about the rest of us? We do not have this skill. That's why I propose a training program, Tejo said. He pulled up documents on the main screen. The companion protocol. Any colonist who wants to settle on Veridax 7 takes a mandatory course on Raxhound behavior and interaction. Humans can teach the basics. Most species can learn to coexist safely even if they never form bonds. And if they can't learn, another representative asked, then they don't settle there. Veridax 7 becomes a specialized colony. But I believe more beings will be interested than you think. The planet is valuable enough that many will overcome their fear. The debate went on for hours. Some representatives refused to even consider the idea. Predators were death. That was the natural order. Others were intrigued. A few admitted they'd always been curious about humanity's strange relationship with dangerous animals. Finally, the vote was called. Tejo held his breath. 23 votes to approve. 7 votes to reject. Veridax 7 was cleared for colonization with conditions. The companion protocol would be mandatory. Regular safety reviews would be conducted. And Tejo would serve as the planet's first xenobiological liaison. As the meeting ended, Brixtal approached Tejo. You've done something impossible. You've changed coalition policy regarding predator worlds. Others will study this. Perhaps more planets like Veridax 7 will be found. Or perhaps, Tejo said with a smile, we'll just learn that fear isn't always the answer. Sometimes the scariest thing in the galaxy can become your best friend. That night, back on the ship, Yuna found Tejo staring out at Veridax 7 from the observation deck. You're thinking about them, she said. The cubs. Yeah, I wonder if they miss me. You'll see them again soon. We're going back down to start the training facility. I know. It's just, I keep thinking about the first moment one of them touched my hand. That instant when fear became trust. That's what we need more of in the galaxy. Trust between different beings. Willingness to try understanding instead of just running away. Yuna smiled. You're too idealistic for a scientist. Maybe. But idealism got us this far. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the planet slowly rotate below them. Somewhere down there, 3 Raxhound cubs were probably sleeping in a den, curled up against their parents, and maybe, just maybe, they were dreaming about the strange 2-legged creature who had whistled to them and scratched behind their ears. 2 weeks after the coalition approval, Tejo stood in front of a small building on Veridax 7. It wasn't much yet, just a basic structure made from local materials and prefab panels from the ship. But it was the beginning of something important. The first Raxhound Companion Training Center. Inside, Yuna was setting up equipment while Brixtal organized data files. 3 other humans had arrived from the survey ship, all of them volunteers who wanted to help with the program. And surprisingly, 2 Velcor scientists had also come. The Velcor were small, timid beings who looked like furry rabbits. Nobody expected them to be interested in predators. Why are you here? Tejo had asked them. We want to understand, the female Velcor named Shira had replied. Our species has always run from danger. Maybe it's time we learn something different. Now Tejo was preparing for the first real test. Not just interacting with the Raxhounds himself, but teaching others how to do it safely. The 3 cubs arrived right on schedule, just as the sun began to set. They had started coming every evening like clockwork. Tejo stepped out to greet them and they bounded over with excitement, nearly knocking him down with their enthusiasm. Easy, easy, he laughed, scratching behind their ears. They had grown bigger in the past few weeks. They were approaching adolescent size now, each one probably weighing close to 100 kilograms. But their behavior was still puppy-like. Yuna came out with the 2 Velcor scientists. Shira and her partner Talk stayed close to Yuna, their whiskers twitching with nervousness. Tejo, are you sure about this? Shira asked, her voice barely a whisper. Positive. Remember what we discussed? Low, calm sounds. Non-threatening body language. Let them approach you. The cubs noticed the new beings immediately. Their ears perked up with curiosity. One of them, Taiho, had started calling him leader because he was always the boldest, padded toward Shira. Shira made a small squeaking sound of fear. Every instinct in her body was screaming at her to run. The Velcor were prey species. They had evolved to flee from anything with teeth. Stay calm, Taiho coached. Kneel down. Make yourself smaller. Shira knelt, trembling. Leader came closer, sniffing carefully. His nose was almost as big as Shira's entire head. Then Leader did something gentle. He lowered his own head and bumped it softly against Shira's shoulder, the same gesture he used with Taiho when asking for affection. Shira's hand slowly reached up. She touched Leader's armored head with one small paw. Leader's tail started wagging. I'm touching an apex predator, Shira whispered in awe, and it's not eating me. Tak gained confidence from watching his partner. He approached the second cub, a female Taiho called Gentle because of her soft nature. Within minutes, both Velcor scientists were sitting on the ground surrounded by curious Raxhound cubs, their initial fear replaced by wonder. This is impossible, Tak said, laughing as Gentle licked his face. Everything we learned about survival says this shouldn't work. Maybe we learned wrong, Brixtall observed from the doorway. Even he had started petting the third cub, though his movements were still nervous. Maybe humans have been trying to teach us something important, that fear is useful, but it shouldn't be our only response. Over the next 3 weeks, Taiho ran training sessions every day. More colonists arrived eager to learn about the Raxhounds. Not all of them succeeded. Some species simply couldn't overcome their fear instincts, but more than half managed to form basic bonds with the cubs. The adult Raxhounds had become regular visitors too. The female, who Taiho now called Mother, would often sleep near the training center at night. The male father kept his distance but watched everything carefully. On day 23 of the training program, something happened that proved how deep the bonds had become. A massive storm rolled in from the Eastern Ocean. The weather satellites had predicted rain, but not this. The storm was a monster. Lightning, heavy winds, and rain so thick you couldn't see 5 meters ahead. The emergency klaxon sounded. Everyone to the main building. Yuna shouted over the wind. Taiho and the others ran for cover. The small training center shook with each gust of wind. Lightning struck a nearby tree, splitting it in half. The crack was so loud it hurt their ears. The shuttle, Brixtall yelled, looking at his datapad. It's been hit by lightning. Systems are failing. Taiho's heart sank. The shuttle was their only way off the planet. If it was damaged badly, they were stranded until another ship could reach them. That could take weeks. The storm raged for 6 hours. When it finally passed, they went out to assess the damage. The shuttle was in bad shape. Black scoring marks covered its hull, and several panels had been torn off by the wind. The engines were completely dead. How long to fix it? Yuna asked their mechanic. With our supplies? 3, maybe 4 weeks, and that's if we don't run into complications. They had food and water for about 2 weeks. After that, they would need to live off the land. Taiho tried to contact the main ship in orbit, but the communication array had also been damaged. They were completely cut off. That night, as everyone sat around trying to figure out their options, Taiho heard scratching at the door. He opened it and found Mother standing there, holding something in her mouth. It was a dead animal. Something that looked like a cross between a rabbit and a bird. She dropped it at Taiho's feet and sat down, waiting. Taiho stared. She brought us food. Over the next 3 days, the Raxhound family brought them food every morning. Fresh kills, still warm. Father and Mother hunted together, and the cubs helped carry the prey back to the training center. They're taking care of us, Brixtall said, watching in amazement as Leader dragged a large animal carcass to the door. They've adopted us into their pack, fully, completely. When pack members are injured or weak, the strong ones provide. This is family behavior. Shira was crying softly. I always thought predators only took. I never imagined they could give like this. The Raxhound family didn't just bring food. They stayed close, guarding the building at night. When Taiho and the other humans went out to gather materials for repairs, the cubs would follow them, watching the forest for danger. One afternoon, while Taiho was working on the communication array, he heard Father make a warning bark. He looked up and saw a pack of smaller predators approaching through the trees. They looked like velociraptors, fast and mean. Father and mother positioned themselves between the predators and the humans. The cubs stayed by Taiho's side, ready to defend him. The raptor-like creatures saw they were outnumbered and turned away, looking for easier prey. "We would have died without them," Yuna said that evening. "The storm, the predators running out of food, the Raxhounds saved us." Taiho sat outside and mother came to rest beside him. She was so large that when she lay down, her back was at his shoulder height. He leaned against her warm bulk, scratching her ears. She made that deep rumbling purr. "Good girl," he whispered. "Thank you for taking care of us." The rescue ship arrived 26 days after the storm. By then, the training center was surrounded by Raxhound tracks. The whole family had basically moved in, treating the area as their den. Captain Reeve, a Volthene like Brixtal, stood at the edge of the clearing and stared at the scene before him. Taiho was sitting on the ground, covered in Raxhound cubs. Mother was lying down with her head in Yuna's lap. Father was letting Brixtal examine his teeth for a health check. "This is the most insane thing I've ever seen," Captain Reeve said. "This is the future," Taiho replied. The Coalition Review Board heard about the rescue, about how apex predators had saved the lives of the colonists instead of killing them. The story spread across dozens of worlds. Scientists wanted to study it. Colonists who had been afraid now wanted to volunteer. Veridac 7 went from being a questionable colony to the most requested settlement destination in the sector. 6 months later, the companion protocol had trained over 200 colonists. Small settlements were being built across the northern continent. Each settlement had its own Raxhound family bonding with the residents. Taiho stood on a hill overlooking the main colony. It was beautiful. Humans, Velcor, Volthene, and even a few brave Canthier living together. And among them, Raxhounds walked freely, no longer feared predators but respected partners. The 3 cubs, no longer cubs really, they were almost fully grown now, lay in the grass nearby. Leader had his head on Taiho's foot. Gentle was chasing butterflies. The third one, who Taiho had named Shadow because he was always hiding, was napping in the shade. Yuna joined him on the hill. "So we're just space dog trainers now?" she joked. Taiho laughed. "I guess so. Though I prefer interspecies relationship specialists. That's a terrible job title, yeah. But the work is pretty great." Brixtal climbed the hill as well, moving slowly because Mother was walking beside him. The massive Raxhound had become his constant companion. It was funny to see the careful, rule-following Volthene with an apex predator as his best friend. "I've been thinking," Brixtal said. "There are probably other planets out there like this one. Worlds rejected because of predators. Worlds that could be valuable if we just learned to understand the animals living there." "You want to find them?" Taiho asked. "I want us to look. The 3 of us. A new kind of survey team.